The Software Leaders Uncensored Podcast, where tech leaders grow beyond the code.
You're listening to Software Leaders Uncensored, the raw, real talk podcast for tech execs who are tired of buzzwords and BS. I'm Steve Taplin, author, serial entrepreneur, and builder of over 30 companies, all running one thing, custom software. Now I help CTOs scale faster and smarter through my company, Sonatified Technology. On this show, we go straight to the source, talking with CTOs, founders, and tech leaders to unpack what's working, what's broken, and how to build better. Let's get into it. No fluff, no filters, just the good stuff. Have a phenomenal guest today, Mark Losey out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mark is an experienced CTO, Chief Science Officer, engineering leader, product development expert, and he's also spent half his career in marketing as well, which is a unique combination of a tech leader. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Mark, tell our listeners in 1 to 2 minutes about your background and what led to your current roles and positions you're doing.
Yeah, so I've been doing this roughly 32 years, so I've been around a bit. Started in manufacturing distribution, moved on to e-commerce with a national beauty distributor. From there, I ended up building web-to-print e-commerce software for the UPS store that got deployed to all 5,000 of their franchisees. And now I'm working on FlockX and the Fetch.AI ecosystem, building AI agents and the AI agent economy.
And so tell us, our listeners, more about those two companies and what's the difference between the two and what they do.
Yeah, so Fetch.AI is founded, also the founder of Fetch.AI is also co-founder of FlockX, and that is Humayun Sheikh. He was the first investor into DeepMind, so he was a really early OG in the AI space, and clearly everything AI right now is based on the generative AI, and that's Humayun started. So he started something called the Agentverse 6 years ago, before people even had any idea. There was no ChatGPT, but he had this vision for how there would be autonomous agents that could be strung together to create larger outcomes.
Okay.
If you imagine the Unix command line, we have a bunch of small tools, and you weave them together with pipes to create higher outcomes, right? Small tools that are best for their job. And his vision was, how do we create AI agents that do something very small really well? And then how do we string them together to create these kind of higher order outcomes? And then on the FlockX side, we focused on building the no-code workbench for small business owners to be able to spin up an agent for their own business or even for their website. I imagine it's like Shopify for AI agents.
Gotcha. And so you're the Chief Science Officer at Fetch.AI, and then you're the Chief Technology Officer for FlockX. That has to keep you busy.
Absolutely. There's no sleep for the wicked.
So you have a remarkable career throughout tech, throughout marketing. How did you land at FlockX and Fetch.AI?
So it's a pretty interesting story, actually. My current CEO is Devin at FlockX, and Devin is also co-founder of FlockX. I brought Devin in on a project, I think his first year out of college, and that was the UPS store project where we built their web-to-print e-commerce system. And it was one of those projects where the software wasn't in the state that it needed to be when the contract was signed. And so we really needed to...
And that never happens, right?
Exactly. And it was a little bit vaporware-ish. There were some things that worked, but we had to rewrite that project from scratch in 6 months because the UPS store had already committed to announcing that they do online print in the
no pressure there.
So they, I don't know, it was like $35 million they were spending to say they did this, and they sponsored the entire March Madness for that year, and they didn't have a solution. So in 6 months, we slept in the office. We're talking 40 hours awake, 2 hours sleep on a cot, 40 hours awake again, that kind of deal in order to...
Elon Musk style of work, it sounds like.
Yeah. And we delivered a really high quality solution. Actually, we had 6 months to deliver it. We delivered it about 6 weeks early, which gave us enough time to train all the franchisees before it went live, which is pretty helpful considering they have to use all the workflow tools to like accept the print and automatically print it in their shop and be able to deliver it to their customer. So worked with me on that project. And then we started a few companies together, launched and exited those. I think it's been about a couple of years since we had done a project together. And he was starting to really get some heat under him on this FlockX project. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, come over here and join. So it's a unique situation because my CEO is one of the better engineers I've ever worked with.
Okay, so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, so I'm not teaching him how to write Python.
So it's interesting, Mark, but as you know, it's been a pretty brutal 18 months in the software space. CTOs are always the first to blame, usually by non-technical CEOs and board members who don't know any different. And it's a really hard environment for CTOs to be successful, to be able to justify the progress that they're making. And, many get caught in the position of having to look for new roles. And as I hear your story, you've kept a great network and kept close to people that you've worked with and had great successes with. And that's, so that's a good story, and learning for other CTOs is making sure you're maintaining those good networks of past relationships and leveraging them.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things, and Devin, I think, took this learning from me, years ago, is that when you get the right project, right? Sometimes you've got a job that you're not going to stay at, and you do the job and you fulfill what they need, and you get it done. And sometimes you hit a winner, and when you hit that winner, you can't fail. The idea is good, so the only failure is yours if you don't make it successful. And so you need to reach out and recruit the best talent that you've seen in your career, the people you built relationships with. It's really the people you've been in the trenches with that you have this kind of really deep trust with. And so I've done that on project after project, brought people along the road with me. And that's the same thing that Devin did when he found this opportunity and saw that it really was the future of kind of this AI economy.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned 30 plus years in the industry. Are you still hands-on code currently?
Absolutely. And so to take this, this podcast right here, I just closed down my PyCharm and I'm starting to learn Cursor, but I use the AI assistant in both of them. But I'm coding every single day. More, not as half architecture, half code, but it's a new kind of world with building these agents that's very non-deterministic.
Yep.
And so it's actually a lot more intriguing and engaging because it's more creative.
I get the honor of talking with hundreds and hundreds of CTOs from companies of all sizes, from small to large. And I've definitely seen smaller organizations to mid-size CTOs are often very much still hands-on code. And as they get larger, they're kind of forced out. And kind of some interesting feedback I've heard is even the CTOs that no matter how big or small the company is, if they're not coding directly as part of their job, they like to make sure they're doing it on nights and weekends for side projects, for other things, to make sure they're comfortable that they could add the right value to their team and understand what their teams are going through. What's your take on that?
So I will admit my weaknesses, my failures. I can't do both at the same time. So throughout my career, I've joined a company and I'm hands-on keyboard, writing code immediately, and a little bit of a control thing where I have to know how everything works, and I got to make sure everything's set up the way I know it will be robust and highly reliable. So I'm really in hands-on. And then as we grow the organization and we start to grow the teams, then the entire focus changes more to process, people, interpersonal communications. How are we developing individuals to go from, entry-level engineer to staff engineer? How do you follow that path? How do you help some people understand, it really should be a product? It could be a great engineer, but they have this vision, they have this ability to define product and understand users' needs. And the two are really hard to do at the same time. And I can't do both at the same time. Once I move to the people management part, which I think I have a talent for, I've been good at kind of moving people forward in their careers and getting to be highly productive, but I have to stop coding them because I can't do the people interactions at the same level when I'm coding. Even if I'm going to conferences and talking, I can't flip back into writing code. I need days of recovery from the people time.
Yeah, and I am not a coder. I've built software for 30 plus companies I've launched. I lead software teams, but I am not a coder, but I work with them all day, every day. And that's a common thing I hear. It's hard to get back in the mindset of clearing the noise, putting the headphones on so you could get in the zone and code. That's what I'm hearing from.
There's a whole relearning thing. So the world changes. If I spend 2 years that are more dealing with the business side of the organization, of course, I'm dealing with the engineering structure and the product structure and the day-to-day operations of those things. But you have a significant focus on dealing with the rest of the organization, sales and marketing, which I end up having some career history and luck that I've had some marketing experience, but that getting back to like really building a project from scratch and writing be all the way deep in, you go 2 years working with people and then you got to flip back. Python wasn't the same anymore. It was just a different Python. I started with
Things
Python.
change very rapidly.
Yeah, when it was where they had Zope and Clone was the content management system, and it was the first object database. And that was the heavy time I had in Python. Then I didn't touch Python for 5 years, and I come back, and there's this. Generally the language is the same, but there's so many additional features, and the build tools and the automated deployments just completely changes. So you just have so much to learn rapidly that you got to just disappear for a few days in a closet and just read
Get yourself up to
and
speed.
experiment.
So you've had this very prestigious career on the engineering, the product development side. You also spent half your career on the marketing side. That's rare for a technical leader to be able to switch gears to the marketing side. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I actually was originally wanted to go to college to be an illustrator. That was my original childhood dream. But my mother was also a school teacher who was the one who she was a language arts teacher, but in the early 80s, late 70s, she knew her school needed to be paying attention to computers. So she was the one who wrote a letter once a month to the state to get a grant for computers. And then they sent her some money for computers. And then she wrote 2 letters a month. Then they sent her some more money. Then she wrote 4 letters a month. And she built an entire kind of computer studio in the early 80s with, 20s and, all the early stuff, the TIs and stuff. And so she always had them at home for us because she would have to have one that she could learn on so she could teach the kids. And so I had both this passion for creativity and artistry and then the programming very early on. And then once I got out into the working world, out of college, then it was just obvious that these two pieces needed to fit together. And having knowledge on both those sides made me more valuable and harder to get rid of, to be honest. Hard to get rid of, and it made me able to rise through organizations quickly.
That's a phenomenal and unique skill for somebody with as deep engineering knowledge you have. So that's phenomenal. Let's talk about your current engineering team. How many engineers do you have today? What kind of stuff you working on?
So we've currently got 6 full-time engineers.
Okay.
And then we have some kind of outsourced teams that are super close and they're super tight teams. So we hire an entire outsourced team together. We don't try to cherry pick and put it together. Work with a company called Atomic Object. It's here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And they kind of got big through building the mobile apps when the mobile app phase, and all of a sudden that was the rage. And now they're moving into pretty heavy into SaaS. So we expand with a team there. And then we get access to some of the teams out of Fetch.AI to kind of burst expand. With people who are kind of pre-aligned with our code base. So we can down one of those teams, but when we spin them back up, the organization already has some idea of what we're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? They're kind of pre-trained.
Yes.
So we can bring in new teams and expand pretty quickly.
Now, are your teams fully remote? Are you guys in an office at all?
Yeah. So we're fully remote.
Okay.
We've got individuals in India, the UK, Portugal, Grand Rapids, New York, Philadelphia.
And so how have you managed with having teams on different time zones? And what's your secret to coordinating activities and making sure one team's not held up by another because they are operating in different time zones?
Well, one of the things we do is that the way FlockX is organized, the company in general, is that it's not engineering and product and marketing. What we do is, and right now it's small, but as we expand, we'll still create the same structure. And it's something Devin and I have done in the past, is a team should have everyone it needs on it to be a complete business. So it should have a marketing individual, it should have the right engineer, it's a product person, but everyone should be embedded in that team and they're all working on the same things together. So, and then what's extremely interesting about what we're doing is everything is an experiment. So our whole way we operate is the team comes together, say, what's the next experiment we're going to do? What's our experiment backlog? So we don't have feature backlogs. They're all experiment backlogs. So it's really like our entire world is scenario planning based on the last experiment.
Okay.
And so it's all coordinated together. And every day we have a stand-up, but it's not really like general stand-ups. And we call it a collab instead of a stand-up. And it's essentially, what can we do to unblock anybody else? And that's really the only discussion that happens in that morning meeting. And then we have permanently open Google Meets. There's a software guild and a marketing guild, or I guess it's called the engagement guild, that people can just join in and out of, or just say, hey, let's talk about this thing. But in general, the real kind of mobilization happens in that morning collab. It's never longer than 30 minutes, and it's only talking about who's blocked and how can someone else unblock you.
So on your morning collab that you do, is your worldwide team on that, regardless of where they're located?
It's only the FlockX core team that's on that call.
Gotcha.
So that ends up being...
Gotcha. What's, a big buzzword today in the coding world is vibe coding, where you're breaking all the rules to get as much innovation as possible. What's your take on vibe coding?
So, like, my impression of vibe coding is like only operating in the little AI chat window. Maybe I'm not entirely educated on the vibe coding thing, though I keep hearing the word, but it's just like AI agents, right? It doesn't have a real definition, so we all make
It's a buzzword basically about not following any rules and giving your engineers the freedom to just roll stuff out quickly and innovatively. And there's pros and cons where, you can innovate faster, but it's hard to have a sustainable product from that. And it's a big buzz out there right now.
Yeah, in general, I don't believe in a world with no rules, but I've spent my entire career believing in the autonomy of an individual who's motivated. So I know that I don't know everything there is to know. I know I've got experience in really, like, my really core experience is maintenance and reliability. So there's building things, but I build things that stay running, right? And so that's the core to me. So my main job is to try and share those snippets of knowledge, but not put a rule around them that says you have to do it this way. But if you know that this is a highly reliable method of accomplishing something or of deploying something, now you as a senior engineer who knows this particular tech really well, you can apply those principles. They don't have to be rules. They just need to be principles that you're following. And I mean, I'm sure there's many, management tech guys, just really good tech guys generally are following principles so they can adapt to change because the tech's always changing.
And I'm with you there. You have to, build a product that's going to be sustainable. So I think that's great advice. As a CTO in today's world, what's the biggest challenge you're facing?
Is that in particular because we're focused on AI agents, and the kind of intercommunication and collaboration of AI agents. The biggest challenge is this is the fastest rate of change that I've seen through my entire career. And I built my first website in 96. So I've seen some change, but the rate of change in the libraries, in things like LangChain and LangGraph and new tools coming out, you really have to be sharp and fast in evaluating a given framework, because you got to commit some time into a framework to learn it and implement it. And so you got to be able to evaluate it quickly because they're changing, new ones are coming out. And I'm happy to throw away my old work if I find something new that's better, but knowing whether it's better and not just a shiny object, right? Because shiny objects are bad.
Yes.
All of tech, shiny objects are bad.
So definitely the rapid pace of change is a huge challenge out there. You've been doing this over 30 years. What's a brutal lesson you wish you learned young in your career that you know now?
When I was young in my career, I was overly assertive and ambitious. And so I definitely burned opportunities because I thought I knew more than I did on the business side. I was pretty strong technically, but I also thought I knew business way better than I did. And I didn't manage those early relationships, which were with really successful entrepreneurs, and, my ego and my ambition. I'm putting it all out here right now, right? So
this is fantastic advice.
Yeah, I thought I knew everything, and I just plain didn't really know 1% of what these guys knew. But because they didn't know how to copy and paste on their computer, I thought I was smarter. But these guys knew real business relationships. They knew how to build networks of businesses that did business with each other to create higher quality outcomes that were amazing. and that create steady streams of income so they could grow other companies larger. And I didn't get all of that, and I screwed it up a lot.
No, I'll tell you what, Mark. I mean, I've had over 30 companies, 20 have failed. Those 20 failures, I've learned more than the 10 wins that I've had any day. And I wish there was, I don't think a lot of this can be taught in school where it really sinks in, or read from books where it'll really sink in. You could read it, study it, but until you face it, you go through it, that's the real learning experience. That, the winners learn from those and have the humility to say, hey, I screwed up, and here's what I'm going to do to not make that mistake again. So thank you for sharing that. That's a great nugget.
And one of the things that I did do is I went back to those individuals that I absolutely know I offended, and when we parted ways in different capacities, and I acknowledged how I was wrong, and said, hey, I'm man enough to admit when I was wrong. And it took a bit for me to get there, but I went back and I made those apologies, and I said, hey, maybe you still have ill feelings about the past, but I have to get over it. I owe you the apology to say, hey, like, I know now you were right. And I think that's critical in leadership. It's critical in partnerships. It's critical in just doing business. It's critical in just personal relationships.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing that you did that, and you had the guts to do it, to admit you were wrong. And and I'm sure there was different reactions. What kind of reactions did you see? That did you see positive reactions? Was it, screw you, I don't want to talk to you anymore? Was it, wow, that's so big of you? What did you see?
So they were generally positive, some a little lukewarm, because relations maybe separated more dramatically.
Yes.
I never burned anybody from a financial perspective or anything, but I may have hurt their ego and I insulted them and stuff. But they were generally pretty positive to go back and just say, hey, I'm man enough to admit when I was wrong, and I was absolutely wrong. And even all these years later, I want to come back and just let you know that you're probably not even thinking about me anymore. But I think it's meaningful to me, and maybe it matters to you for me to come and say that. And so it's generally positive responses.
That's a great tip for others out there. And once again, that says a lot about who you are and the growth you've gone through. What's next for FlockX? What do you see the vision there? What humongous industry challenges are you guys solving?
Well, right now, because we're focused on building this no-code agent builder, it's a popular thing people are doing out right now, but we're really kind of at the next stage of that AI agent builder, which is really about collaboration and how do you get two AI agents to collaborate. And so it's a significant challenge, but I think we did our first proof of concept on delivering kind of the general collaborating to achieve a higher order outcome, over a year ago. And now we've kind of expanded that into this much larger bring your own agent and then use our collaboration platform. Because right now, the entire AI world seems to think there's a human and an AI, and those are the only two things that can exist in a conversation. But when you get really meaningful outcomes among a group of humans, which is what we want to replicate in a group of AI agents, is when we get 4 or 5 people sitting in the room that really can jive with each other, there's a thing that happens that the outcome is greater than the sum of its parts. Right. And so that's the key factor that we're delivering with AI agents, is not how you take one agent and have it talk to different agents that are supposed experts and then accumulate the results and give it back to you, but how are they actually equals in a conversation and collaborating, say, working on a document together or working on a plan. The one I'm working on today is an AI agent that is a urban planner and another agent that is a environmental scientist. And they're going to kind of re-architect or remodel a local park here in Grand Rapids, right? So that's the kind of proof of concept example.
Okay.
The just released agent-to-agent protocol from Google. So they just released this kind of format for agents to communicate in the wild, and something we had been working on, which they came out with something that's kind of more thorough. So I got to trash some of my stuff and take their stuff. But then some of our stuff is a lot further than what the agent-to-agent protocol has in place when it comes to like full collaboration, exchange of ideas. So it's kind of a cool thing that we're on right now. It's all about
I have to laugh, Mark. If we were to line up 10 technology leaders and experts and ask them what AI is, we'd probably get 10 different definitions. And AI is a phenomenal thing. Getting multiple AI agents to truly collaborate in the manner that you're talking about. A lot talk about it, and it takes smart people like you and smart, smaller companies that are disrupting things to make that happen. So that sounds exciting. Mark, thank you for getting uncensored with us today. Excited to see how you help shape the next chapter of FlockX and tech leadership at large. Any final shout outs or advice for tech leaders navigating change you'd like to give?
I would say that the shout outs are Devin Blibtree, Humayun Sheikh. These two individuals, just brilliant trailblazers. And the entire FlockX team is just, these are people who are dedicated and focused. And, hey, the whole world of tech and the whole open source community, my entire career is built on open source. So I thank everyone who's ever contributed to an open source project because you fed my family.
That is fantastic. That's it, Mark. Thank you so much. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Toplin. I've built over 30 companies, taken the hits, turned win into playbooks, and focus on helping others successfully build software. If this conversation sparks something, share it, subscribe, or send it to somebody in the trenches. Just remember, the best leaders don't wait for the perfect moment. They build it, stay bold, and keep building.